Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to do a 1-year ownership review of having a log burner. And this was kind of inspired by the visit that Emma and I had to the little place in the country, which you see in the other one, where they had that huge log burner in that horse hut. But I had loads of questions before I bought my log burner. So I'm hoping I can go through all of those things, my experiences today, because you'll probably have the same questions and hopefully this can help you out. So this wood burner is a Westfire Unique 45 Eco Stone. I'll bring it up, Eco Design. I'll bring it up on the screen there. And it is a 5 kilowatt burner. So when you're buying a burner, they always say how many kilowatts you want. And you can get quite high kilowatt ones, which are designed to heat a really big room. This is a 5 kilowatt burner, and the room that we're in now is actually quite large. It's about 8 meters by 4 meters. It heats this room no problem. It is a multi-fuel burner, which means that it burns logs and coal. And if you're buying a new wood burner, that would be something I recommend that you do, because getting the coal enables the logs just last longer, and also it just burns warmer for longer, and coal is much easier to get. You can just pop down your shop and get it, whereas logs are a bit more of a faff because you have to go out to a log supplier to get them delivered to your house. Okay, so we've had this wood burner for a year now, and we had someone come and install it. You can't really install it yourself, where you have to get some sort of gas check if you want to install it yourself. But this house does not have a chimney. It does not have a traditional chimney. We did have a fireplace here before, an old gas fireplace that we kind of ripped out, and we had the gas kind of tapped off by a plumber. And the installation process itself takes around about a day. They had to come and put this chimney in. I'll show you what that looks like outside in a minute. And when you're getting it as well, they also ask that you have this this hearth on the bottom here, which we didn't have. They did price in a hearth with it, and it was about £500 for the cost of the hearth, but the hearth was tiny. It just kind of came out of just around the wood burner, and I wanted something a bit more substantial. So what I did is I just went over to, I think it was Home Bargains, one of the places that has a garden centre. I picked up some of these big thick slate tiles and just used some really strong adhesive, tile adhesive, and just put that down. I think it cost me about £120 to do that, so much cheaper, but I actually like it because it's just much more substantial and you can fit all your stuff around it, and it just looks a bit nicer. So one of the things that I've sort of read up online is people have got these things which are like fans, and they sit on top of the burner, and they don't have any kind of electric or battery or anything like that. And the heat from the burner spins the fan. So once the burner's been on for a while, these start to spin. And the idea is it tries to circulate the heat around the room. So you just put it on there, and it just kind of, after a little while, probably 20 minutes of the burner going, it starts to go. It doesn't really make any noise, it spins around. What I can say is it does absolutely nothing. It's totally useless, to be honest. I know people will say different things on the internet, but it made zero difference to the heat circulation in the house. So that's something that just kind of might look nice, but doesn't really do anything. The one thing that made a massive difference that I actually also saw on YouTube or on the internet somewhere was a fan. And what I do is I put a fan just in front of the burner here and just sort of angle it up, and you point the fan at the burner. It sounds a bit odd, but you point it at the fan at the burner, then the heat comes back out, and that made a huge difference to the circulation of the heat in the room. One thing to be careful of is when you're putting the logs on, move the fan out the way. Otherwise the fan's just going to blow into the burner and all the ash is going to come back out into the room, so make sure you don't make that mistake. In terms of cleaning, what I tend to do is I leave a layer of ash in the bottom after each burn. It makes it easier for you to be able to light the fire the next time, so I don't clean the whole thing out every time. I might clean it out every few weeks and just get everything out of there. But in terms of the glass really does start to get quite cloudy, and it can get black at times. So what I've got is this kind of a glass cleaner, yeah, I just sort of spray it on the inside. You leave it for a minute, then you just come back, wipe it off, and the glass is clean again. You really notice the difference. If you haven't cleaned the glass for a few weeks, and then you clean it, it looks like a new wood burner. You really see the flames again. So it's worth doing this every couple of weeks. Biggest mistake I made with this wood burner is it was put in and I put it on for the first time, and it goes through this thing called curing, which is the where it's getting super hot and the paint is kind of almost like not really dry. I don't really understand it, but if you touch the wood burner, any of the wood burner paint at that point, it kind of ruins the surface of it. So you'll see here that I've got these kind of marks on the burner where I was opening and closing it with the door, and it was kind of just taking the top of the paint off. And then I used one of these fans and I put it on the top there to do it, and it's actually marked the top of the burner. So that's the biggest mistake that I've made with the burner since I've had it. To avoid that, what you want to do is just burn it the first few times and just avoid touching any of the paintwork. Even when you're opening and closing the door, just do not touch any of it, because over time it will settle and then it dries and then it doesn't do it anymore. So just on to lighting it, kindling, all the logs, all those sort of things. So I use these, which I get from, I think it's like Home Bargains or B&M. Can anyone tell the difference between those shops? But I think they're 69p for a pack. And yeah, I just break off a bit of this and put that in the bottom of the burner. That's probably a bit too much, to be honest. Just a note of caution, I haven't actually lit this burner since last year, so I got no idea how this is gonna go. So on to kindling. I just get these kind of bags of kindling. I think they're about £3. And the good idea with that is stock up now around about September, October time, because you can get them everywhere. And then as you get through the winter, they start to become a bit more difficult to get hold of. So what I then do is just take out a few bits, and the guy that put the burner in told me to sort of build like a little structure. So I think you need like air in between so you can light this. So built my little structure, and now we've got to think about, we'll light this in a minute and see what it actually does. As I said, it's the first time I'm lighting it this year, so I'm not quite sure how it's going to go. Right, so that's the kindling on. Now onto logs. So I actually ordered these logs. I did have a source of logs myself, and I tried to cut them. I don't actually trust myself with a chainsaw, but I tried to cut them, and I got one of these log splitters that you put on and you kind of split your own logs. I reckon I spent about 2 hours trying to cut some logs, and I ended up with this tiny little pile that I was extremely proud of. And then I just thought, this is going to take me ages to do this. And then I ordered some off a local guy, and he turned up with a whole van full and just chucked them all on the drive. And then it was that point that I realised that I would never be able to create that many logs. It would take me days or weeks, so much easier to just buy them. Last year it cost me about £100 for a truckload, like a pickup truck. And the guy just turns up, as I say, and just tips them on the drive. You have to pick them all up and put them in your wood store. This year the price has gone up because the price of everything's gone up. I think it's about 140 quid this year for a truckload. It's still well worth it because you don't want to be doing this yourself, and they come fully dry. The key things with logs is, are they dry? And if you're ordering it from a local log person, get it from someone that recommended to you, because some people will deliver logs and they're wet. If you put wet logs on this, it's not going to be a great experience. The logs aren't going to burn, it's going to smoke your whole house out, and it's not going to warm you up, which is the most important thing. So what I ended up doing, because I'm just a paranoid type person, is I ended up buying one of these kind of log moisture testers, which tests the how much water is in the log. And what you do is you just kind of turn this thing on. It's already set to wood, and the goal that you want to achieve is below 20%. So if it's below 20%, then it's good to burn. If it's above it, then you're going to be struggling, and the further below it is, the better. So this one is a good log. It's 11%. It's well below the 20% target, and that is going to burn really nicely. The other thing to do is don't just check one part of the log, check a couple of parts. So you see on the end there, it's 12.3%. On this end, it's 12%. So that's a good log. And what I tend to do is, because kids find it quite fun, is I get them to get the logs out, test which ones are ready and which ones aren't. One of the things I had is I actually went through, and this is a good point, is how many logs are you going to get through? That was the key question that I had. I use and this is like the how long's a piece of string question, because how much you can have your burner on, that's going to depend on how many logs you burn. I had it on pretty much every day in the winter. I'd have it on a little bit in the day, and then I'd have it on every night. We went through 2 of those truckloads, and then I was kind of running out, so I got another delivery, but it was late on in the season. And when the logs arrived, they were really quite wet. They were sort of 25, 24% logs, so I couldn't really burn them. So try and get your logs early in the season, because as you go through, they're just using up all the logs that they have, and some of those are probably not fully dried yet. So just on coal, it's a real mixed bag on what you're going to get, right? So I bought quite a few bags last year. I want to say I probably bought about 5 bags of coal, 20 kilo bags, and some of them were brilliant and some of them were just rubbish, and you put them on and they'd add no heat. But if you get a good coal, and I don't really know which one to recommend and which not, because it's really hit and miss, I think, each year. But if you get a good coal, it really heats the room nice. And actually what I ended up doing was putting some coal on there before I went to bed. I'm not necessarily recommending you do this, because I don't want you to burn your house down, but I don't think it will. But I would put coal on the bottom there, and it would just, you come down in the morning and the room is still warm. And this brings me on to another point. A lot of question that people ask is, will this heat my entire house? The short answer to that is no, it won't. Okay, and I imagine if you had this in a small kind of 2 up, 2 down house, it may heat it. And especially if you have a traditional chimney and that chimney goes up through your bedroom, you'll probably find that the chimney upstairs gets warm and it'll heat your room. We don't have that here. Our chimney goes outside, which I'll show you in a second. But in terms of how much does this heat, it heats this room easily, which, as I said, it's about 20, 24, 25 meters squared. Yeah, actually it's bigger than that. What did I say? 8 by 4, 32 meters squared. And it heats this room. To be honest, it heats this room to the point where you're sitting down there in shorts and t-shirts. It's so unbelievable hot. Drives my wife crazy, because I close all the doors, the windows and everything, and it's like an oven in here. And then actually when I go to bed, it's quite a relief to go upstairs and get into some sort of coldness. So it doesn't heat your entire house. You'll probably still need to have radiators on in other parts of your house, but it gives you a real nice heat, and it gives you a lengthy heat. What I find in our house is I put the radiators on, then they kind of go off. It starts to get cold very quickly. This sustains the heat for hours and hours, and it's just really nice. My favourite time with the wood burner is when it's kind of a rainy, horrible sort of Sunday afternoon, freezing cold, and you just put it on, put the football on, and you've just got a roaring fire going, and there's nothing better. Right, so this is our outdoor chimney, which I think when they install it, they call it a flue. I call it a chimney, but they call it a flue, so that's what you'll see on your quote. And they just made a hole in the wall. It's a twin wall flue, it's called. They made a hole in the wall. They put these brackets on here because it needed to go out to the over the gutter, and then it just goes up there. One of the things that you may find, and this is what we had, is the height of the chimney determines how well the burner burns. So they need to test that when they're there. What happens is if the smoke is not going up through the burner, it means that the chimney is probably not tall enough. So with ours, it wasn't quite tall enough, and they had to come back and make it a little bit taller. And then immediately the smoke started to be sucked out of the chimney. So this is my log store. I built it myself, as you'll probably be able to see. I am useless at DIY, but basically what I did is I got a couple of pallets. There's a pallet on the bottom there, a pallet on the side, and this is an old kind of a fence, part of a fence. And then I just sort of screwed them together, and then half attached it to my shed, which is already falling apart here on the side, or you can see it's attached. But it's worked really well. And thankfully this plant has quite conveniently grown over it, which keeps it nice and dry. And this is where I store my logs. So when I said that the guy turns up with a truck, this isn't the truckload, right? So you got all of those in there, and I'll show you the rest in a minute. But this is my attempt. These are all the logs that I got from the different places that I was going to cut myself. And as you can see, I've just chucked them in there. They must be super dry logs, but I don't know if I'll ever get the opportunity to actually cut them. Right, this is my second store, which is this full kind of like shelving unit here. And then I've got a third store down the side there, which is another big pile. So that's how many you get when the guy turns up and just drops a truckload off. What you think is, you look at all this, you think, never going to get through all that in the winter, but you do. And then we had another load, the same as this, and we got through them as well. What I'm going to do this year, which is slightly different, is I'm going to use coal more, and these logs will last a lot longer then. Right, now we're going to light the burner. First time in quite a few months, 6-7 months, we're going to light it. Let's see how we go. Right, so to light it, you have to open these two vents. There's one on the top, and there's one on the bottom. The one on the bottom opens up more air. So these basically open up air into the burner. So what you do is you have them open to start with, and then you get the fire going, you put a log on, and then over time you gradually close the vents. And then you probably pretty much close the bottom one completely, and then this top one is really used to regulate the heat that you're getting into the room. So if you have it open, it's going to burn the logs a lot quicker, and you're going to get more heat. And then you close it off over time, the logs burn longer, and you're just getting quite a decent amount of heat. But if you want more heat, you have to open up, get some air in there, and get the fire going. So I'm going to light it now, and see how we go. I'm just going to light the fire lighters. Probably going to get a lot of smoke on the first one. So you can see the smoke coming out of the burner. And what I tend to do is get quite a small log on the first one that I'm going to put on. Try and do this without actually ruining my pile. Try and cut that bit out. And we'll get ready to put this on. Right, so we're ready to put our first log on now. I tend to go for a small log, as I said. And I use my glove for this, this was provided with the burner. I'm actually going to get another one, because really you need two when handling the wood burner, because it gets incredibly hot. But I'm just going to put this this log in now, and this will be our first log of the year. Oh, there's a lot of smoke coming out. Right, try and do it so you give it some air. Let me just close that. And then that log's going to catch light, and then we just leave that that log burning for a short amount of time, and then we're ready to put another log on. And then what I tend to do is burn through a couple of logs, and then that's when I put the coal on. So what you'll notice is the first time that you light it, often the glass starts to get quite black already. But what I found, at least with this burner, is as it gets really hot, this blackness kind of comes off. It still will leave some residue on there, but the black kind of disappears. Okay, so one of the things that I was worried about when I first got the burner was air quality. It's one of them things that you hear on the internet, that that they're kind of dangerous, the things that you're breathing in. So what I did is I got one of these Amazon air quality devices to test the air. I got it on Amazon Prime Day, and I think it cost me about 30 quid. What you'll see here on the screen now is that the air quality is quite good. It's 87. And the key thing to look out for here is these kind of PM3s, the particulate matter, and the VOX index. I think it's called volatile organic compounds. And that shows you what your kind of air quality is like in the room. And this is it with the wood burner off. And then what I'm going to do is light the burner and show you what it looks like with them on. Okay, so you'll notice that the quality of the air has dropped. So now we're at 63 rather than 87, and our particulate matter has jumped. And this is apparently a bad thing. So you can see there where we put the burner on, it's gone from green to orange, and that means that it's not good air that you're breathing in. So in terms of costs, the actual burner and the install and everything cost about, I think it's nearly 3.5 grand to put it in. In terms of log costs, I reckon I probably spent about £250 for the winter, but I had, like I say, I had the log burner on every single day, sometimes in the day, and pretty much every night in the winter. Coal costs around about I think about £16, £18 a bag for 20 kilos. All of these prices are going to have changed now because inflation's gone through the roof. Like I looked earlier to see how much this burner was. It's about £400 more expensive than what I paid for it for the same burner. I imagine the install costs have gone up and everything's just gone up because everything's gone up. But that's how much I paid for it. As I said, the firelighters are like 60 odd p, and then the kindling. So the question that people always ask is it cheaper than radiators, than putting your heating on? The answer to that is don't know, really. It depends. It depends on your situation. You're probably still going to need to have radiators on in other parts of the house. It's not going to heat your entire house, as I said earlier. I found that basically I ended up with a warmer house for longer because I actually like putting the burner on, and it keeps the house warm for longer. Like I say, you can go to bed and wake up in the morning and this room, you can still feel the heat in it. So I just found that it was much more comfortable. So costs are probably debatable. This has probably cost more, and obviously it's going to take you ages to get the cost back of a burner. If you're going into this to save lots of money, it's probably not going to happen. It's more of a kind of a lifestyle thing that you actually want to have a wood burner. I personally love it and I wouldn't go back to not having one. But hopefully you found this video useful. Hopefully I'll remember to include everything. Thanks for listening and speak to you soon.